In Hollywood, where every smile can hide a secret and every friendship can be tested by the glare of the spotlight, the tension between Taylor Swift and Blake Lively has become the story. Everyone is watching what began as a celebrated connection between two of the most recognizable women in entertainment has now turned into a storm of speculation fueled by court documents, whispers from insiders, and a mysterious absence that has left fans and the media buzzing Taylor Swift the global music powerhouse known for turning her personal experiences into chart-topping anthems, and Blake Lively, the acclaimed actress with a career built on charm, wit, and style, once seemed inseparable. Their public appearances radiated warmth, their interactions felt authentic, and their bond was seen as one of the rare Hollywood friendships that could withstand the pressures of fame. But now that image is under pressure as legal documents paint a new and less flattering picture of their dynamic, while neither woman has spoken openly about the situation. The silence itself has become part of the intrigue, and adding to the drama is the sudden unexplained disappearance of a co-star from one of Blake's recent projects. The co-star's absence has sparked its own wave of theories, from creative disagreements to something far more personal. The timing of this vanishing act, so close to the surfacing of the court filings, has made it impossible for many to believe it is a coincidence. This is more than a simple celebrity dispute. It is a layered narrative where legal battles, personal relationships, and unanswered questions collide, the kind of real-life drama that feels like it belongs on the big screen, but is unfolding in real time, and the world is watching every twist. The moment the first whispers of tension between Taylor Swift and Blake Lively began to circulate, there was a noticeable shift in how Hollywood insiders spoke about the pair, once hailed as an unshakable example of celebrity friendship. Their bond was the kind of thing publicists loved to highlight: photos together at events, social media exchanges that were equal parts supportive and playful, mutual appearances in each other's projects or causes. All of it created an image of genuine closeness. Yet, as with many Hollywood relationships, what is visible on the surface is often only a fraction of the full story. The first signs of trouble came not in a headline-grabbing public confrontation, but rather in subtle absences, moments where fans noticed that Taylor and Blake were no longer appearing together as frequently. Their interactions on social media dwindled, and when they did occur, they lacked the warmth that once defined them. Soon after, rumors began to swell about behind-the-scenes disagreements and differing perspectives that had been simmering quietly for months, if not years. And then came the court documents, the filings, which have now become the talk of both industry insiders and devoted fans. Were never meant to be fodder for public consumption, but once pieces of them began circulating, they painted a version of events that cast Blake Lively in an unexpectedly tense light. In them, certain exchanges were described in ways that suggested Taylor had been privately critical of moves Blake had made in both her professional and personal spheres. There were mentions of conversations about how certain public appearances were handled, about how statements were framed to the media, and about whether Blake had at times allowed her relationships within the industry to be leveraged in ways that did not align with the mutual respect they once shared. These fragments were more than enough to ignite debates across online platforms, with Swifties speculating endlessly about the context and the implications for one of their favorite friendships. But even as these discussions raged, another thread began to weave itself into the narrative: a missing co-star from one of Blake's recent projects. The disappearance was first noted in a small entertainment blog, which mentioned in passing that a supporting actor who had been prominently featured in early promotional material for the project had suddenly stopped attending press events. Their social media went silent, and attempts to reach them for interviews were met with polite refusals, or in some cases, no response at all. What could have been dismissed as a personal matter became far more intriguing when sources connected to the production hinted at growing tensions on set and possible disputes over creative direction. While there is no confirmed link between these set tensions and the high-profile court drama involving Blake and Taylor, the proximity in timing has fueled rampant speculation online. The legal filings themselves offer tantalizing glimpses into the complexity of Hollywood relationships. They suggest that Taylor, though not directly involved in the legal matter, has nonetheless found herself mentioned in contexts that highlight the influence she wields in the industry, and how that influence can become a point of contention for those in her orbit. For Blake, the documents seem to underline a series of moments where her decisions were questioned and her motives scrutinized, not just by the press but by individuals she once counted as allies. This dual pressure of navigating legal scrutiny and the shifting sands of personal relationships can be enough to unnerve even the fae. Most seasoned Hollywood veteran fans and commentators have pointed out that Blake has been noticeably more reserved in recent public appearances. Her trademark confidence still present, but tempered by a certain caution, as though she is acutely aware that every gesture, every word, might be dissected in light of the ongoing narrative for Taylor. Meanwhile, the situation presents a delicate balancing act. While she has built a career on the careful curation of her public image and the cultivation of deep connections with her fan base, being associated with a legal dispute involving a close friend is a reminder of how quickly narratives can spiral beyond control. There is also the question of how the missing co-star fits into this tapestry of events. Some believe it is an unrelated matter that has been opportunistically linked to the drama for the sake of clicks and engagement. Others see it as a potential piece of a larger puzzle that has yet to fully reveal itself. Whispers about conflicts during filming point to disagreements over how certain scenes were portrayed and how promotional commitments were divided among the cast. This is not uncommon in the industry, yet in this case, the silence from the missing co-star has left a vacuum that others are only too eager to fill with theories, from the measured to the outrageous. The combination of court intrigue, celebrity tension, and an unresolved absence has created the perfect storm for sustained media attention. In this environment, every new scrap of information is seized upon, dissected, and debated. Fans on social media platforms, trade theories like currency, and industry insiders, though often reluctant to speak on the record, are quick to share their interpretations. Privately, the result is a narrative that refuses to die down, a story that seems to gain momentum with each passing day. In many ways, this reflects a broader truth about the modern entertainment landscape, where the line between public persona and private reality is not just blurred, but often deliberately manipulated to maintain relevance and influence for Taylor and Blake. This means that even moments that might once have been handled quietly between friends now play out in a public arena, where every participant has an audience, and every statement can be amplified beyond its original intent. It also means that the mystery of the missing co-star is unlikely to fade quietly into the background. Instead, it has become yet another chapter in a story that feels both intensely personal and unavoidably public. The longer the silence continues, the more the absence becomes a presence in itself, a constant reminder that in Hollywood the story is never just what is said, but also what is left unsaid. As the story continued to develop, the atmosphere surrounding both Taylor Swift and Blake Lively grew increasingly tense in Hollywood circles. The court filings became a kind of whispered currency passed between reporters, lawyers, and insiders, each page containing carefully worded statements and subtle references that hinted at more than they explicitly said. These documents did not simply recount events, they framed them in ways that encouraged interpretation and speculation. And it was in this interpretive space that the public imagination began to run wild. Fans pored over the limited excerpts available, dissecting every line in search of hidden meaning, looking for the moments where Taylor's name appeared, and analyzing how her connection to Blake was described. Some argued that Taylor had been positioned as a kind of moral compass in the narrative, someone whose opinion carried weight even when she was not directly involved. Others noted that there were passages suggesting disagreements about professional strategy and image management that may have placed strain on the friendship. Whatever the truth, the net effect was that Blake Lively found herself in the unusual position of having to navigate a conversation that was only partly under her control. Every public appearance became a stage for silent performance. Every smile, every wave, every choice of outfit was interpreted through the lens of the court documents and the ongoing speculation. Meanwhile, the mystery of the missing co-star was becoming harder to dismiss entirely. At first, there were gentle reassurances from sources close to the production, who suggested that the absence was due to personal reasons or scheduling conflicts. Yet as weeks passed, without any substantial update, these reassurances began to ring hollow. Reporters who tried to contact the co-star found themselves met with polite deferrals or no response at all, and the social media silence remained unbroken. This vacuum of information encouraged more and more theories to take hold. Some claimed that the co-star had left the industry altogether. Others speculated that they had been advised to keep a low profile due to legal concerns related to the production. Still others whispered that creative disagreements had led to a quiet parting of ways between the co-star and the rest of the team. In the midst of all this, Taylor Swift maintained a studied silence. She did not address the court filings directly, nor did she make any public statements about Blake Lively. The only indications of her perspective came indirectly through her music, through the themes and imagery of her performances, and through the occasional cryptic posts that fans were quick to interpret in the context of the unfolding drama. This restraint was in keeping with her long-standing approach to controversy, which often relies on allowing her audience to connect the dots rather than explicitly guiding them. Yet even this silence carried its own risks, as it allowed others to fill the gap with their own narratives for Blake. The challenge was more immediate. She was actively involved in a legal process that required careful communication. Every statement she made had to be considered. For its potential impact on the case, every public appearance was an opportunity to either reinforce or undermine the image she wished to project. Observers noted that she had scaled back on informal interactions with the press, preferring instead to stick to prepared remarks and controlled settings. This only added to the perception that she was under pressure, and perhaps even nervous about the direction events were taking. Industry veterans remarked that it was rare to see an actress of Blake's stature so visibly constrained by circumstances that were partly outside her control. It was a reminder that in Hollywood, no amount of star power can completely shield someone from the consequences of public perception. The missing co-star thread continued to intertwine with the court drama in subtle ways. Occasionally, a report about the legal case would include a throwaway line about the absence, as if to remind readers that this was still an unresolved piece of the puzzle. Some journalists openly questioned whether the disappearance was being kept deliberately vague to prevent it from influencing the ongoing proceedings. Others suggested that the timing was purely coincidental, but that did little to diminish the intrigue behind the scenes. Conversations between producers, lawyers, and publicists revolved around how to manage the optics of both situations, without allowing them to merge into a single damaging narrative. After all, if audiences began to see the missing co-star as somehow tied to the legal tension surrounding Blake, it could create a perception problem for the entire project. At stake was not just reputations, but also the commercial prospects of the work itself in this environment. Every player had to think several steps ahead, weighing how each move might be interpreted not just by the public, but also by potential collaborators in the future for fans. This convergence of events made the story even more compelling. They traded theories in comment sections and on fan forums, some drawing elaborate connections between quotes from the court documents and snippets from interviews or set reports. Others focusing on the broader implications for Hollywood relationships and how quickly they can unravel when exposed to public scrutiny for every measured take. There were dozens of wild speculations, each adding to the noise and ensuring that the drama remained a fixture of online conversation through it all. Taylor's role remained a subject of fascination. She was not the one in court yet. Her name, her brand, and her influence were present in ways that were impossible to ignore. And Blake was the one in the spotlight, grappling with a situation that seemed to expand with every passing week: the pressure from multiple fronts, the ongoing legal scrutiny, the whispers about personal relationships. The unresolved question of the missing co-star created a perfect storm in which every decision felt consequential. And every silence spoke volumes in Hollywood, where narratives are crafted as carefully as scripts. The challenge for both women was not just to manage reality, but to manage the story about that reality, a task that becomes exponentially harder when so many people are eager to tell it for you. As the weeks rolled on, the weight of the situation seemed to settle more heavily on Blake Lively, while she continued to maintain her polished public image. There were subtle signs that the unrelenting attention was taking a toll. Some close observers noted that her interviews had become shorter, her red carpet interactions more controlled, and her social media posts carefully curated to avoid anything that could be interpreted in connection to the court filings. It was as though she had built an invisible wall around herself, allowing only carefully measured glimpses to the outside world. This was in stark contrast to the Blake Lively that fans had come to know over the years, someone known for her effortless charm, quick wit, and openness in sharing moments from her personal and professional life. Now, the stakes were too high for casual remarks or spontaneous posts. Every word was weighed, every gesture considered. For Taylor Swift, the situation was equally delicate, though she was not directly involved in the legal dispute. The presence of her name in connection to the filings meant that anything she said or did could potentially be linked to the drama in the court of public opinion. She had spent years crafting an image of both accessibility and control, an artist who could be deeply personal, yet highly strategic about her public narrative. But here was a story where she was not the author, and that loss of control, no matter how slight, could be unsettling. The connection between Taylor and Blake had always been a source of fascination for fans. The two had seemed to represent a blend of glamour, creativity, and mutual respect that transcended the typical Hollywood friendship cycle. But now that image was being reframed by the constant drip of speculation and analysis, and while neither woman had publicly addressed the supposed strain, the silence only seemed to amplify the noise in the background. The mystery of the missing co-star continued to cast a shadow over everything. At first, the production team seemed confident that the absence would fade from public memory, but the opposite happened. With each week of silence, the questions grew louder. Entertainment reporters began connecting the absence to the tone of the set during filming, citing unnamed sources who spoke of creative disagreements and conflicting visions for key scenes. There were whispers that the co-star had clashed not only with certain members of the cast, but possibly with senior production figures as well. While these rumors remained unverified, they were enough to give the story a life of its own. Fans began combing through behind-the-scenes photos and promotional clips, searching for clues about when the co-star was last visibly engaged with the project. The fascination lay not just in the disappearance itself, but in the idea that it might be tied to a larger narrative, one that included the legal tensions surrounding Blake Lively and the mention of Taylor Swift. In court-related contexts, even without confirmation, the timing was too coincidental for many to ignore. This layering of mysteries meant that every development in the legal matter was seen through a wider lens. Any statement from Blake was parsed. For subtext, any public appearance from Taylor was interpreted as a possible comment on the situation, whether intentional or not. The speculation created a feedback loop in which fans, influencers, and media outlets each amplified the other's interpretations. Until they took on a life of their own in Hollywood, such narratives can be as damaging as the facts themselves, because perception often drives opportunity. Producers and casting directors are wary of association with unresolved controversies, not necessarily because of the truth of the matter, but because of the distraction it can cause for Blake. This meant that beyond the legal considerations, she also had to think about the long-term implications for her career. How would the ongoing attention impact potential roles, endorsements, or collaborations? And for Taylor, the calculus was similarly complex. Her involvement in the story was indirect, but her brand thrives on a sense of trust and connection with her audience. If the narrative surrounding her became too entangled in a friend's legal and professional challenges, it could shift the way certain segments of her fan base perceived her. This was not to say that either woman was in immediate danger of losing their standing. Both had built careers resilient enough to weather storms. Yet in an industry where timing and optics matter as much as talent, there was a clear need for careful navigation. Meanwhile, the missing co-star's continued silence had begun to attract attention from unexpected quarters. Industry commentators who normally focused on box office performance and creative trends started to weigh in. Some suggested that the absence might signal a deeper problem within the production itself, perhaps related to leadership or creative control. Others wondered whether it was part of a broader pattern of tensions among the cast. Whatever the truth, the lack of concrete information left ample room for imagination to fill in the blanks. The intersection of these storylines created a narrative dense with intrigue for the public. It was not just about a friendship under strain or a court case making headlines. It was about the interconnected web of relationships and events that make up the entertainment industry, a reminder that behind every polished interview and photo op lies a world of negotiations, compromises, and personal dynamics that rarely make it into the spotlight. The continued blending of these elements meant that the story showed no signs of slowing down. If anything, the appetite for updates was growing. The more Blake and Taylor maintained their silence, the more their absence from the conversation became part of the conversation itself. The missing co-star remained absent. The legal filings continued to circulate, and the public continued to watch with a mix of fascination and impatience, waiting for the moment when someone would finally break the silence and offer answers to the questions that had been building for months. As the dust continues to swirl around the intertwined stories of Taylor Swift, Blake Lively, and the missing co-star, one thing has become clear. This is not a narrative that will fade quietly into the background. The court filings have set a chain of speculation into motion that shows no signs of slowing, and the longer the principal players remain silent, the more their absence from the conversation becomes the conversation itself. For Blake Lively, the challenge remains balancing the demands of her career with the scrutiny that comes from both legal proceedings and public perception. Every move she makes is weighed by fans, critics, and industry insiders alike for Taylor Swift. The situation is equally delicate as she must navigate the implications of being mentioned in connection to a close friend's legal and professional turbulence while maintaining her own carefully crafted public image. And for the missing co-star, the mystery of their disappearance continues to fuel endless theories and debates, with every day of silence adding weight to the unanswered questions Hollywood has always thrived on. Stories of friendship, rivalry, ambition, and secrecy. But this particular saga feels different because it blends all of these elements into one sprawling drama that touches on themes of loyalty, trust, and the cost of living life in the public eye. It is a reminder that behind every headline, there are real people making difficult choices and dealing with pressures that few outside the industry can truly understand as the weeks turn to months and the narrative continues to evolve. The only certainty is that each new revelation will spark fresh debates, reignite old theories, and keep audiences watching closely. Because in this story, the final chapter has yet to be written.